So Dr. Umar Johnson on the Bittersweet Podcast, Part 2, coming right up. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to Common Sense, Logical Reason. And as always, I want to say thank y'all for joining me today. So this is part 2 of Dr. Umar Johnson's interview on the Bittersweet Podcast. In part 1, I basically addressed him talking about his 3 principles of Pan-Africanism, which I believe should be called Pan-Jackassism because it makes no sense. But anyway, so let's go ahead and continue on with this interview.
As Pan-Africanists, we believe in freedom of religion. Marcus Garvey was a Christian.
Yeah.
El Hajj Malik El Shabazz Malcolm X was a Muslim.
Yeah.
So we believe in freedom of religion. I have no issue with your religion unless your deity looks like your enemy. So if you run around with a white Christ, we got a problem. Because as Pan-Africanists, we believe in self-determination. Jesus should look like me because I'm African.
Once again, Dr. Umar Johnson is an American citizen. He's an American. And I'll say it again, Africa, it has nothing to do with skin shade. It has everything to do with basically being born there. But Jesus Christ came here for one reason and one reason only. He came in human flesh for one reason, and that's to be the plan of salvation. That's it. Okay? Jesus didn't come here to be the plan of race hustling, for a bunch of race hustlers always be using him to cry race about everything. Okay, he came here to be the Redeemer, so that all man, not some man, but all man would have to have a plan of salvation, and likewise, all man is going to stand before him and be judged. Regardless of what his skin shade is, or what you believe his skin shade is, or regardless of what your skin shade is. Now, I will warn Dr. Umar and the rest of these race hustlers that, the Bible says, those who add and take away from the word will be cursed, and he's doing nothing but adding to the word by constantly hyping race into everything. Jesus never focused on his skin shade.
Not only should Jesus look like me because I'm African, Jesus was an African, and Jesus was born in a cave in Ethiopia. And it wasn't until the Nicene Council of 325 that Emperor Constantine changed that fact and said Jesus was born in a manger in Bethlehem. Prior to the Nicene Council of 325, the whole world knew that Jesus was a blue, black, purple African who was born in Ethiopia.
According to the Bible that we all read, Jesus was born and raised in the Middle East. Well, since the Middle East is part of Africa, then yes, Jesus is African. But he never talks about the plan of salvation. All this dude ever says when speaking on Christ is, or Christianity is black. Bigoted black, 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 Jesus is black. So honestly, he's no different than these black Hebrew Israelites. Instead of standing on a corner with a megaphone, telling everybody that they're black, he's doing it on interviews that he carefully picks. Right? He carefully picked these interviews, but like I said, this constantly insistent want to inject race into everything in Christianity is going to cause him to lose out on his salvation. Once again, as I said, the Bible says, "Those who add and take away from my word shall be cursed." Nowhere in the Bible does it say go around and it doesn't say thou shalt be a race hustler. It does not say that. And much of what he says and these black Israelites do is contrary to what the Bible says. So once again, I mean, he's on the path of not getting that salvation, because he's going to have to stand before Jesus, and Jesus is going to ask him, well, why were you using my name to hype and hustle race?
And we don't really have the privileges, especially, let's talk about Australia. We haven't been here for as long as these other cultures have been here for. So we haven't established organizations or systems for ourselves right yet. Mm-hmm. So there are grants, there's funding, there's things that we need to accept to be able to build ourselves as a community. Mm-hmm. And I remember a woman asking you about that, and you said the opposite. So can you talk about why you think that's not, like, why we shouldn't be doing that? Yeah.
The hand that pays is the hand that rules. You can't show me any people in human history at any time, any color, on any continent who empowered themselves using the funding of the very government that oppresses and marginalizes them.
Okay, and the problem here is that all of his foolishness is based off of oppression. It's based on nothing but oppression. The problem, though, as I say, is there is no oppression. There's no oppression. What oppression? Okay, we have no enemy. Well, at least in the United States of America, we have no enemy. Blacks have no enemy and are not being oppressed in America. So, like I said, so that means that his argument is irrelevant. He's not being oppressed in America. He's not said one time how he's being oppressed. All he does is the same thing as everybody else is harp onto this group collective oppression and do nothing but either cry about a past that's, number one, completely irrelevant to today. Number two, it's no longer happening. It's not happening to blacks today. And number three, he himself never seen, never faced. And they keep crying about disparities. This is what the race hustlers do. But since there is no oppression and he can't give any evidence of oppression, then his whole argument is basically meaningless then.
Doesn't happen. Now, if you say, Dr. Umar, I'm getting funding from the Australian government to work with young girls, I'm not going to criticize that. I'm getting funding from the Australian government to reduce violence in our community. I'm not going to criticize that. I'm getting funding from an Australian business or bank or corporation to help the homeless women. I'm not going to criticize that. But if you say, I am a frontline Pan-Africanist organization that's fighting for freedom, justice, and equality for the Australian African, then it becomes a contradiction.
Those blacks are Australians. They're not Africans. They're Australians. Again, this ridiculous belief that if you are black, you're an African. That's dumb. Again, your country of origin is based off of where you're born, not your skin shade. Once again, I said in the last video, there's nothing magically or spiritually tying black people to any landmass on this planet, and that goes for every race of people. But basically, black Australians aren't being oppressed in Australia. And I mean, if so, how? Where's the evidence that all these black people in Australia being held back from achieving anything? That's the same question I ask of blacks in America. Name me one thing that you cannot achieve in this country. Name me one job, one income, one lifestyle, one career path, one sector of the society, one university in Australia, one amusement park in Australia that black Australians are being barred from doing or going and participating in for simply just being black and with no other reason other than just being black. Where's the evidence of this? So it can't be a contradiction if there is no oppression.
You cannot be a frontline revolutionary or frontline activist group who's fighting for freedom, justice, and equality for all Australian Africans and take money from the government. That's a contradiction. But if you're only taking money to service a certain issue or challenge or concern in our community, I will be patient with you because you're serving a need that needs to be met. But then my bigger question would be, how long are you going to be on this financial umbilical cord to your oppressor? Until you get to the point where you can finance that program yourself. In other words, Queen,
Okay, speaking on basically this so-called financial umbilical cord to the white man, how about he says that to his black queens who basically many of them been living off the government all their lives, in most of their lives anyway, most of it anyway, being supported by the government. How about he tell that to them? But since there is no oppression, then it's not about race. How can it be about race then if there's no oppression? And black folks aren't being oppressed in America, so it's not about race. It's about being a productive member of society. If you are a productive member of society and you're participating in it economically, make yourself competent. As I say, ACP, accountability, competency, and participation. then you won't have to worry about being on the umbilical cord because you'll be able to support yourself. But if you keep focusing on race and keep making blacks perpetual victims, then they're always going to be dependent because victims are going to be dependent. And as long as blacks are going to be black victims and be stuck in black victimhood and spend all their time and energy focused on victim, there's not going to be any time focused on being productive. And then you're going to be an umbilical. You're going to have to be attached to that umbilical cord. But he's responsible for keeping people, black folks, attached to that umbilical cord by keeping them being perpetual victims on stupidity. It makes no sense. And then what he does is he's using race to hide black, laziness, incompetency, and dysfunction, which is what a lot of these race ups do because they know, as I've always said, when it comes down to black people, when in America, when race starts, brains stop. They just turn into mindless zombies when they hear race, incapable of function like a normal human being. But anyway, y'all, that's it for part 2. And I'll continue more in a part 3 because I don't like to let my videos go on too long. And with Dr. Umar Johnson, like I said, 1 minute video of him is like probably 5 to 10 minutes of content because he says so much nonsense. But this is why Dr. Umar Johnson carefully picks and chooses who he talks to and who he sits down to interview with. He's not going to interview with someone who he believes is going to check him. And then he comes up with this nonsense about all those who beneath him. He only talks with people who are equal to him, and all those beneath him he educates. Bullshit. This dude's a joke. He can't educate anyone. Not talking a whole bunch of nonsense. He's not going to sit down and talk with no one who's going to check his ass. That's basically what he's doing. Anyway, y'all, so that's it for part 2. And as always, until next time.